Happy Saturday, everyone. Hoping out there is enjoying your weekend. Let's take a look at February so far. We've got about a week left, and it's been a very warm, very unusual February. In many areas, you've seen the warmest February in many years. Looking at the temperature anomalies, anywhere from 5 to 10 degrees above average for much of the southern plains here. But once you got into the upper Midwest, and especially around the Great Lakes there, yeah, anywhere from 15 to almost 20 degrees above average. And even up here into the Northeast, you've seen a plenty warm February as well. As only the cooler areas have actually been the West Coast, where they've seen a lot of rainfall for those areas into California, and actually into Florida has been on the below average side. Let's take a look at the overall precipitation. And yeah, it's been a very wet month so far in California. Very lot of atmospheric river events and well above average precipitation for the West Coast, and even actually, in fact, much of the Intermountain West. We are in an El Nino, and typically you have a less active polar jet, and that's one of the reasons why you're so above for the Great Lakes and into the upper Midwest, but you're also pretty dry as well. It's just that southern branch is typically a little bit more active. And look at the progression of this rain. You can see how fast moving that southern jet has been pretty much all month long. And you can actually see it in the precipitation with it fading once it gets into the southeast. But they've seen a ton of rain into Louisiana and Mississippi and back into Alabama, as well as into Georgia and up here towards Tennessee into Kentucky. But look at the jet stream. So this is what we're working with. This is what they call a split flow. You have the southern branch of the jet stream, and then you also have a northern branch of the jet stream, which is typically a little bit less colder in El Nino timeframes, as well as a lot drier. The southern branch definitely more active. But whenever you see the split flow, if there's times that they're able to come together, then you have a much more potent system. But if they tend to stay separated, then that southern branch continues to move off into the East Coast, and it never can catch up with the northern branch, and you tend to have a more elongated system, a lot more faster progressive system. That's a lot of the systems that typically what we have seen for a good month of February, because overall, if you're looking at the big picture, there's technically not any blocking going on, right? These storms form off the West Coast, and they traverse across the middle of the country, and they're pretty fast moving. In fact, they're super fast. So they're not able to pick up much moisture with them, and they're not able to pick up any colder air masses that might come down, and maybe even these stronger storms. If they don't kind of come together and they merge together, then they tend to be a lot less potent than they would in fact if they were to come together. And so that's overall kind of what we're seeing for much of February here, because overall the pattern has just been so progressive. And you can see this even right now. It's pretty clear across a good part of the country. I mean, looking at the surface map, it's actually a really nice weekend, right? It almost looks like more like April than it does February. We do have a little bit cold shot. You can see the cold front that's come down from the Dakotas all the way down into Tennessee and getting up into the Northeast, and back behind it, they are feeling definitely the chillier air. And in fact, there's even some sporadic snow showers across the Appalachians there. But other than that, it's pretty clear. This is the main storm system that we'll be watching for next week. That's well off the West Coast. And we got all weekend to experience in a pretty nice weekend for a good part of the country. And there's that colder shot of air that's impacting those areas into the Northeast, portions of the Ohio Valley, and as it fishtails down into the East Coast. But the rest of the country, you are experiencing still on that warmer side. And I think, in fact, you warm up in a big way as we head into going into Monday time frame, because wow, look at the surge. That Pacific jet comes in with a vengeance, and that southern flow means business. And there's so many records that are going to be broken on Monday with those temperature anomalies pushing 30 above average. That is insane stuff down there in Texas, but even further north, right? You got the southwest surge and you got the downsloping wind east of the Rockies here. That is the perfect combination. That's the warmest wind you can have. That's why you get this surge well northward all the way up into Canada, those well above average temperatures. And coming in from the northwest, you can see on the backside, we do have a colder push of air, but not before. You're going to break a lot of records. And the National Weather Service, and every time they keep updating, this keeps on getting higher and higher because the temperatures keep climbing. We've got more 90s on the map. We're probably going to be seeing our first 100-degree temperature of the year down there in Texas on Monday. Those 90s surge for a good part of Texas. In fact, record in Dallas is 90. I think they actually break it. But look at all these records. This is the circled marks. This is a record high with 80s, 70s, even 70s surging all the way into Iowa, folks. 60s going up into Minnesota and then getting well further northward. 55 records potentially broken. That's just on Monday. And if we go into Tuesday, it's the same deal. I mean, if we combine the 2 days, we're talking about 100 record high temperatures. That's something you have not seen in many years. So definitely prepared for a very warm, and it's not going to feel like February. It's definitely going to feel like more like April, and in fact, some cases May in some of these areas, with that rapid surge out with that low-level jet. We're like really cranking up that Pacific jet. And yeah, many records are going to be broken likely for many years to come on that February 27, 26 timeframe. But back behind it, you can see the rapid difference, right? So you got a drastic drop back behind the front up there in the Dakotas where you're celebrating the 60, 65 degrees. Now you're pushing 20 degrees for a high temperature, folks. So yeah, that's a 40-degree drop from one day to the next, and you're really going to feel it. And that's actual temperature. So that's not even feels like, because the winds are going to be really cranking behind this front, and you actually go below zero on the feels like. So that's going to be a sharp temperature gradient to the body and what you would feel going literally from a heat index to a wind chill. But you can see the clearness, right? I mean, with that southern southwestern jet there, the rapid clearing for today, tomorrow, and even really a good part of Monday, it's pretty clear. I mean, it's going to be very warm, right? And that's the reason why you're going to be so warm with that freeze line going well up into Canada by then. We do have that colder shot, right? Coming in from the northwest. That'll sneak into those areas, into the northwest, into Washington and Oregon and much of Idaho and parts of Montana there, with that snow coming back in the picture for them. But even further south into the west coast, we're watching that storm complex come in, and look how fast it moves. That southern branch just screams so fast. And we were watching this system for a couple of days now, and honestly, a couple of days ago, it looked pretty nasty. It looked pretty severe, and it's waning. I mean, literally with every update, because the simple fact these jet streams technically really don't come together that much. I mean, you got the southern jet well out ahead of it on that Tuesday setup. There's the northern setup still well behind it into those areas, into the Dakotas. That's why we're seeing that rapidly dropping, and you could see some quick burst of snow, maybe 1 to 3 inches of snow out of this deal as it comes in, and we'll have to watch that southern branch. But overall, the jet streams, this is what we're looking at. So you got the southern branch still kind of well out ahead of it, well ahead of the northern branch. And if they keep separated, they tend to be less effective and not as strong than what they would be if they definitely start to come together and form some sort of like bowling ball trough. A lot of the dynamics look like what was going to come to fruition maybe just even a couple of days ago. And as these systems update, and as that southern branch again keeps getting more and more progressive, it just gets less and less as strong what it looked like just a couple of days ago. But they have the dew point surging. We're going to have the moisture in place. And you know, a lot of times I put actually Michigan in the uncertain area because of the dew points. We're going to be lifting so far north, and the dew points are still there, folks. Even on Tuesday afternoon, with those mid 50s, almost 60-degree dew points, well in the northern Illinois, up into Indiana, and even mid 50s going up here into Michigan. That still puts them into play with that low-level jet starting to come together. And that's why the Storm Prediction Center has, in fact, pushed the risk a little bit further north to include those areas into Michigan now. This will be on Tuesday, heading into Chicago, into Springfield, back into the St. Louis region, into Indianapolis, and as far south into Springfield, Missouri, and then over into Little Rock, as well as into the Memphis area. But the area has subsided a little bit. It didn't look as intense as what it looked like just a couple of days ago, and in fact even lessened the threat even on Wednesday, because the simple fact that that southern branch and that northern side just doesn't come together, and it looks pretty messy right now. So they're still hanging on to that threat, but we'll be fine-tuning this and watching this for you. But overall, that's what's been happening with this weather, folks. It's just, again, the split flow and these systems that they're just so progressive. They're just so fast, and right, they're in and out before you know it, and they're just gone. And which this would be like a very quick moving system. There's a low pressure on Tuesday night, with a low pressure up here towards into Michigan here. And this is why they have the threat starting out ahead of this into Michigan there, into Indiana, and then fishtailing down into portions of Kentucky, you know, heading into Tuesday. Then going into that Wednesday time frame, that's your low pressure continues. And again, it's a thin line, right? You got a small window now of it kind of coming together, and this is still a ways off. It's still Wednesday, and this is Saturday. It's still 5 days off. So by the time it gets here, it could be nothing but just a very thin linear squall line, and the trend has been decreasing. It hasn't been increasing. It's been actually decreasing with this particular setup. And going by the history of these setups and what we've seen so far in the month of February, they tend to be a lot progressive, and I'm definitely leaning towards this system is really going to be elongated and kind of sheared out, and then maybe just looking at a kind of a stronger squall line before that actually starts to, you know, come together. But yeah, the most prolific part would be your Wednesday area, where the systems try to kind of merge and kind of, you know, come together there. But overall, it looks like definitely looks like pretty messy on the southern mode, going through areas of Kentucky. But right now that looks to be, and it's always looks to be, the most favored area right there in that southern Illinois, southern Indiana, into Kentucky, into western Tennessee. So that seems to be the most prone area to get into the highest impact of the storm going into early next week. But it's going to be windy behind this front. I mean, you can definitely going to feel the difference. And with all the heat you're going to be dealing with for February standards, and then the cold front comes in, and then the wind chills are definitely going to be a shock to the body after you're seeing a rapid transition of heat index to wind chill, and those winds are going to be cranking at 40 and 50 miles an hour back behind that front as it moves through. Here's the overall wind chills going into that Wednesday morning, and that's the difference, folks. I mean, there's going to be a sharp temperature gradient where you were experiencing, you know, record high temperatures, 65 degrees, right, in the Dakotas. Now you're experiencing those below zero temperatures, or below zero feels like. So that's going to be a definite shock to the body. And again, this still looks to be quick, right? I mean, it's a quick combination, just like you've seen in the East. You got a quick front coming in for the weekend, then it rapidly warms up. Then you got the quick front coming in Wednesday and Thursday, and then I'll show you, it kind of rapidly warms up again. And of course, this front even moderates as it comes further south. But look at where we're at Thursday. We're pretty much clear again, because that system is already gone. It's like off the East Coast already by Thursday mornings. That's how fast this pattern is right now. These things just go from west to east across the country fairly quick, and the systems just don't last very long at all. And what could happen with this front? It's not going to make it all the way down into the coast. It's actually possibly going to be backing up as a warm front So, yes, by Friday, the colder air starts to subside, and you got the warm front coming back with the southwest wind to kick off the month of March. And that's going to bring some instability back, likely not severe, but heading into the southeast, that's going to prop up some more rain showers for those areas across the southeast. But look what happens out to the west again, right? We got yet another system coming in for the west, and that's going to bring more snow and more rain and more colder temperatures for the west, because the east, the central and eastern 2/3 rapidly warms up again, and all the cold air is compressed westward into the Pacific Northwest, with that trough coming back down. And yes, we'll have another kind of atmospheric type river type setup again for the West Coast, for those areas in the Bay Area. And that could bring some more flooding rains back into the West Coast going through those first couple of days of March. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch my next update where I protect you for and after the storm.